Welkom terug bij de Werf en Live. We gaan zo starten met SmartRecruiters. Robert Symons. We gaan het hebben over digitale transformatie. Waarom is het nu de tijd om als recruiter te transformeren? Zij werken onder andere in Nederland voor Rituals, McDonald's, IKEA. En de komende 12 minuten gaat hij je zo meenemen in die mooie presentatie digitale transformatie. Ik wil je nog even wijzen op de mogelijkheid om vragen te stellen via de app of via de internetsite. Dus pak hem lekker bij. A very warm welcome for Robert in London. Hi, I see you, Robert. Thank you. From SmartRecruiters. Let me first see your shirt. I heard you're always wearing a hoodie at work. Helene told me.
Yeah, that's not strictly true. I do own suits, but yeah, one of the great things about SmartRecruiters is they do have great swag. So yeah, I wear them often.
Okay, perfect. Robert, you're in London now, so take it away in the London style. Good luck.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for the introduction and welcome everybody. I hope you're all safe and well today. And I just want to sort of kick off and sort of give you a sense of what we're going to cover today. So this topic centers on digital transformation and the fact that we live in an increasingly digital age. So let me, before we sort of dive into the meat of things, let me give you some sort of context. In the last few years, it's clear that entire industries are facing disruption with the likes of Netflix, Uber, Amazon, really changing people's expectations and the delivery models. And that's had a knock-on effect to the talent markets where hopefully, we all sort of work day to day. The first thing is, sort of increased volatility around the hiring volumes, much sharper sort of peaks and valleys. Also, with this digitization, there's been a shift in the skill sets that organizations are looking for. I remember many years ago, providing recruitment technologies, manufacturing organizations didn't really have a big need for digital recruitment platforms. But now, because they're actually looking to hire 3D printing and software engineers in that manufacturing environment, they're after and competing with the same skills as those software companies. And also, the time that it takes to do things is actually becoming sort of elongated. It's sort of longer. So it's clear that this digital disruption is here to stay. And from my perspective, and you can read the slide, I've yet to see a TA function, so recruitment leaders, really at the forefront driving digital transformation within an organization. It's a fairly sad fact, really, because from my perspective, TA is typically one of the most dynamic HR sort of business units, and it's predominantly external facing, and they really should be taking the advantage to lead from the front. But I think whether you're sitting in recruitment or sitting in sort of another HR arena, I think we can all agree that talent is the key differentiator for most companies, and also the largest or close to largest cost on the balance sheet. I remember many years ago being quite stunned when I was reading the annual report for HSBC, one of the world's largest banks, and the cost of talent is $19 billion a year for them. So the other thing that is sort of stressing and creating a lot more sort of anxiety when we speak to sort of recruitment leaders has also been this sort of increasing need to consolidate and integrate the wide variety of tools that are now needed in today's marketplace to actually sort of make a hire. So I'm talking about sourcing tools, I'm talking about social media, which we all know and love, I'm talking about assessment providers, artificial intelligence, job distribution, candidate relationship marketing or CRM, background checks, and many more. But in many cases, the technology platforms or the technology stacks that organizations have at their disposal are not really sufficient to operate in this new world. For many, they have to change, and the solutions that they have are not scalable, and they've not been designed to manage large pools of passive talent. whilst there's a hiring freeze. And I think that many tools also frustrate and do not promote a way of collaborating and driving a much more sort of efficient process between recruiters and hiring managers. And quite often when we're speaking with organizations, there's many different silos of data and processes across an organization, which really slows down businesses' ability to hire the right talent at the right time. And a lot of organizations, if we think about from a recruiter's perspective, are they actually equipped to operate like a sales and marketing function? And very often they're not. So again, a sort of typical challenge that we see out there in the marketplace is that recruiters, who are faced, based on that previous slide, with a myriad of technologies. The average is about 8 different disparate tools, Excel, Outlook, Avature for CRM, Taleo for the ATS, LinkedIn. They've got all of these technologies and they're unable to bring it all together to work efficiently. So they very often sort of work outside of the platform. So, if that wasn't enough, if there wasn't enough challenges trying to engage candidates and driving a more collaborative environment with hiring managers and trying to help recruiters be more productive, this happens. It hasn't happened once, but it's happening again. It's happening twice. So again, we're faced with COVID this year with another layer of complexity, of disruption, market condition, which is driving a high number of changes in the way that we work and, quite frankly, how we exist as human beings. But the impact to talent is high, and it's really compounding some of the challenges that I listed earlier. So what we're seeing is, extreme shifts in hiring. Some organizations obviously are in hiring freezes, whereas other organizations we talk to are actually in hiring frenzies. So I'm sure you've probably seen over the last few months announcements like Amazon needing to hire 100,000 new people. In the UK, Tesco's, one of the leading retailers, announced that they needed to quickly go and hire 23,000 people. If any of you read the news, the British news, we've had a lot of problems with our track and trace over here. And, the organization needs to go and hire 23,000 people to actually effectively help manage the track and trace for COVID. So, we're all learning sort of new skills as well, whether that's home working, web meetings like this, and the entire engagement model around talent management for organizations was pretty much flipped on its head, and it changed overnight. For the time to hire, which I referenced a little bit earlier, for some companies, it's now. So don't assume that, due to COVID and unfortunately the number of layoffs that we're also reading about, that it's become easier for recruiters. Some of the conversations we have, in fact, there was a global telecommunications company we spoke to. They reported that they're actually seeing a drop in candidate volumes for those very much in-demand roles. So profiles, priorities need to be set now. So I'm just going to pause for a moment, and hopefully my friends at Werf are able to provide you with a poll. So we're very keen to ask you, what are your priorities right now? And we're keen to, once we've got that poll sort of set up and working, and it should be coming up on your app right now, just let us know what your priority is, and we'll ensure that we share the results of that poll a little bit later. So I'll just give you guys a second or two whilst the poll comes up. And it's not too taxing. It's just one question. So we really appreciate your feedback on that. I'll have a quick sip. Great. So I want to be very clear. Whilst this is a new and uncertain world for a lot of us, it's not the first time that we've been faced with such adverse conditions. I'll be 48 in November, so I was working actually in this industry, providing recruitment technology during the financial crisis. And, there's a number of contacts that I have who, were put into a complete freeze. A lot of people lost their jobs, but a lot of organizations actually took this opportunity to think differently and, to actually do something about it. So you can see on screen, Einstein says, in the midst of every crisis, there lies great opportunity. So from our perspective, we didn't choose to be in this situation, but we can choose how we respond. And it turns out, as HR leaders, there's actually a lot that we can do. We can invest in transformation. We can take time to evaluate our current processes and look to optimize them, remove those redundant steps that perhaps you've just kind of tolerated for the last couple of years because you were running so fast, keeping up with recruiting. You can look at your people. So do you have the right mix of skills within your organization to achieve the business outcomes that you want to? And of course, one of the other things that we're seeing is that organizations during this time are actually taking an opportunity to look at the tools that that they provide the recruitment organization to make them successful. So one of the other things I want to talk about is really, now is the time to really think about the strategy for the future. It's clear that things have to change. A lot of companies were already thinking about transitioning and sort of doing some form of digital transformation, shifting away from the old sort of recruitment processes to perhaps more proactive. Now's the time to really help drive better relationship building processes within your TA function and put in another, there's more opportunities also to look at driving efficiency. And there are solutions out there. So, let me, if you will, just give you a little bit of insight to some of the things to be thinking about. So the first area of challenge for a lot of organizations is the reactive nature that they've been working under sort of busy conditions. A lot of organizations are still quite reactive. We call it requisition-driven hiring. So you get the job and then you start going out and advertising and sifting through the volumes of candidates. A lot of this part of the front end of the process can be automated now. So there's great solutions out there to really help with the automated distribution, the engagement of social media, the sifting, the sorting, using AI to help prioritize, remove bias in that initial sort of screening process. The next area is about, making that shift, taking this opportunity to really move from reactive to proactive. And for many organizations, if you're not recruiting today, candidates are probably still contacting you. You've probably got a larger influx of candidates, most commonly. So how do you actually harness this database of candidates that you're building but can't hire today and actually start building relationships, nurturing them, preparing them for the roles which will come up eventually once we come out of this crisis? So things like candidate relationship management are very high on the agenda for people to actually bring this skill set into the business so you can manage those relationships whilst perhaps you're not actively hiring. It's also particularly important when you think about internal mobility. So ensuring that you continue to engage with your existing employees and again, prepare them for the roles of the future. And finally, the other thing to think about is, how can TA move into a much more sort of predictive model? So, looking at, using data and science, which is out there now to support the business and be able to prepare them on how long is it going to take to build a team? Where are these skill sets? How common are they? What's the market rates that we need to pay? So there is a key sort of number of things to sort of look at, I think. And the next piece of advice from myself is to also, for TA leaders really to take this opportunity to take a step back from the dance floor to the balcony. And by that, I mean, sort of looking at the bigger picture of the business. TA leaders must make that important step to really think bigger and align to the corporate strategy. There is a huge amount of change and transformation happening because of the market conditions. So as TA leaders, you really need to focus in on, the changes that are going to help drive true sort of business outcomes. And, if anything, this presentation is a call to action. Now is the time to act, to be bold. We can't hide from the fact that there is a burning need to change. And for many organizations out there, it's a very sort of urgent situation. You can see on the slide here, companies have different pressures, but there is one constant, and that's the need to adapt. But I hope I'm kind of painting the picture here. I don't want you to feel completely overwhelmed, because help is out there, and there are platforms that can help bring this strategy together. There's solutions that help drive automation, particularly when recruitment leaders are being asked to do more with less. And again, that's fairly common in our conversations. There's solutions out there which can really help drive collaboration in your process, even in this more remote world. And this is where I think technology has got a very key part to play. If your teams and your hiring teams, your recruiters, the store managers that you're serving, whatever it may be, everyone's distributed much more greatly, and we're unable to come together quite as often as we did, having a platform that enables efficient collaboration in your recruitment process is going to be key. And if you think back a few slides to kind of the complexity that recruiters are faced with in terms of the myriad of different technologies, platforms, and technology are out there that enable you to bring everything into one place, and a much more sort of manageable platform. And SmartRecruiters, where I work, is one of them. And for those of you who follow SmartRecruiters, you may have seen some of the announcements. This week we were actually recognized by IDC as the market leader in terms of this sort of new modern talent acquisition platform space. And, aside from obviously talking about the technology, I think it's very important that if you are out there looking for a new solution and a solution provider, you find somebody who's sort of incredibly passionate about change and transformation, and, people who are prepared to sort of roll up their sleeves and help you drive real business outcomes. And again, we've taken a very sort of positive step to actually provide TA leaders and organizations with a definitive guide to actually making this type of step change. So if you're sitting there and you've got one of your phones just sat on your desk in front of you, if you take a moment, you can actually scan the QR code on the screen, and that will actually take you through to a link so you can read the definitive guide. And it's all about measurable outcomes for your business. So thank you very much for your time and attention. Hopefully that was useful, and hopefully we've got time for one or two quick questions.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. There were a lot of voters, but we cannot show you the results, so we have to quit that. I'm sorry about that. Okay, I have a question. Is global transformation globally the same, or is it different between the countries?
It definitely varies. I think the pressures and the needs remain the same. I think the tools and technologies are global in nature, but for transformation, the biggest part of transformation is probably change management. And because there's so many different cultures around the world, I think that is the key thing that organizations need to get right. We've all heard about projects where people have implemented technologies and tools and they've not landed well with the business. And that's typically because they haven't culturally aligned or prepared the business or focused enough on change management. So I would say it does differ, particularly in the area of change and culture, but plenty of digital transformation projects can succeed.
I can imagine. Thank you, thank you. Maybe one last advice for our TA professionals from you?
Yeah, hopefully it's come across for me. I think the time to act is now. You know, be bold. I'm not suggesting it's easy to make a change or to transform, but you know, now is the time to act, because when the market picks back up, you're going to wish that you'd changed the wheels on the car whilst you were stationary and not waited. So act now would be my advice.
Act now. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a nice day and maybe see you again.
Wonderful. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.